What's up, everyone? Today we are talking about learning and behavior issues in kids and how you have a smoke detector and a watchtower inside your brain and how the communication of those two things can be what's contributing to those learning and behavior problems. I really hope you like it. So I was reading a book this weekend. It's The Body Keeps the Score, and it's an amazing book, and the author had a part of the book that just absolutely hit the nail on the head when talking about learning and behavior problems and kind of the kids that I see in the office. And he had an analogy that was awesome, and he described the brain as having a part that acts as a smoke detector and one that acts as a watchtower. So a part of your brain called the amygdala is known as your smoke detector part of the brain, and really what its job is to scan the environment and see if anything's up, if anything's affecting your survival or danger, and basically it's just constantly subconsciously scanning the environment and seeing if you're going to be put into a situation that's going to cause trouble. And if it does, or if the alarm goes off and the smoke detector goes off, it'll send a message to the brainstem to recruit all the stress hormones and to get ready for this stress. This amygdala part of the brain acts really fast. So, like I said, it's a subconscious thing that you're already scanning the environment, and if it senses something, it's already sending this cortisol and adrenaline out into the body before our frontal cortex can even register what's going on. So before we're even consciously aware that there's a danger, we're already sending out all these stress signals and getting ready for this threat. In most kids with a learning or behavior problem, their amygdala or their smoke detector is very twitchy. So even though there's not an actual real threat, like there's not a lion sitting there, they shouldn't actually be sending this smoke detector off, but because it's twitchy, little things that are not life-threatening and should not be perceived the way that they are, it could be something like a classmate made fun of them, or they're thinking about their test coming up next period that they're probably not prepared for, or it could be they're thinking about their sports practice coming up and how hard that might be, and all these different things that aren't supposed to be these life-threatening things, but these kids have that twitchy amygdala and that twitchy smoke detector where these seemingly small problems become bigger problems and they release all this stress hormones into the body. So because this amygdala or smoke detector becomes very sensitized to this different stimulus, it ultimately misinterprets whether you're actually in a dangerous situation or a safe situation. And the smoke detector belongs to the emotional brain. So when you engage your emotional brain and you set off that smoke detector, it's going to shut down your higher level thinking and your frontal cortices. And this is basically the part of the brain that makes humans so smart. It lets us critically think, it lets us problem solve, and it's the part of the brain that we use during school. So if your smoke detector is constantly going off and stimulating this emotional brain, you're shutting off the part of the brain that's known as your higher level thinking and the part that you ultimately need the most during school. When we're really locked in on that higher level thinking, we're able to behave properly, we're able to concentrate, focus, sit still in school. But when the emotional brain takes over, then that's ultimately going to shut down that frontal cortex. It's going to shut down the functioning of the higher level brain. When you're running in this emotional brain, this is where outbursts happen, or even shutdowns happen, where the child just kind of shuts down, or acting instinctually, or acting before thinking of the consequence. If the amygdala is the smoke detector, then the frontal cortices is more your watchtower. So the thing about the smoke detector is it doesn't really care if it's a false alarm or if it's an actual threat. Basically, it's that subconscious scanning, and then if it even gets a hint of perceiving threat, it's off and running. And it happens so quickly that we don't even realize that we're getting stressed out. So at this point, it's up to your watchtower and frontal cortex to be able to react quick enough to let you know if it's an actual real threat or if it's just something like a false alarm. If it is quick enough, the watchtower can restore balance. It can let the body know that it was a false alarm and that you can call off that stress response in time. When you are able to call off that stress response, you suppress down that emotional brain, you bring online that higher level thinking brain, which allows you to focus, concentrate, and behave better, which are all critical parts of being able to succeed in the school system. For some kids, the filtering system of their higher level brain is just too weak, and that basically lets the smoke detector run the show. and then that's ultimately going to let the emotional brain run the show, which is not a good recipe for learning and behavior, especially in the school setting. In order to restore proper balance between that smoke detector and that watchtower is ultimately to stimulate what's called vagal tone, and you do that by stimulating the vagus nerve. And that's gonna act as just a massive brake pedal, and it's gonna take that body out of that emotional brain and out of that red alert, high stress state, and it's gonna shift them over to more of a restful growth and development stage where you can learn and concentrate and behave the way that you're supposed to. There are many top-down ways to kind of stimulate this system, and a lot of the ways you can stimulate that vagus nerve is meditation, yoga, deep breathing exercises, probiotics, diet change, exercise, omega-3s, all these different things that I would highly recommend just anyone to implement in their lifestyle to bring that vagal tone up and stimulate that vagus nerve, which is ultimately going to bring that higher level thinking back online. But there are also some bottom-up ways that are longer lasting. This bottom-up strategy is recalibrating your autonomic nerve system, which is at the level of your brainstem right up here. That's legitimately what we do at the office. So we look for any functional shifts in your nerve system, especially at the area of the brainstem, and correct those functional shifts so that your autonomic nerve system can be recalibrated and your nerve system can work properly. To sum this video up as quick as possible, when you are in a high alert, kind of stress state all the time, you're not able to concentrate and focus and behave the way that you should because you're ultimately running your emotional brain. Conversely, in order to excel at concentration and focus and learning and behaving and things like that, you need to be able to use your higher level thinking brain. And the way that you do that is by shifting your body out of that high stress state and into more of that restful state that's called the parasympathetic nerve system. And that's where stimulating the vagus nerve and vagal tone all happens. So I talked mostly about kids in this video, but just know that the same principles apply to adults, people with PTSD, people in chronic high stress environments. The longer that you're in this kind of high stressed out emotional state and using that emotional brain, the longer you're in that state, the more chance you have of developing a chronic health condition. If you liked what we talked about today, I recommend picking up a copy of The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. It's a fantastic book. It talks about the brain, the mind, the body, and how it deals with stress and trauma. So it's an awesome book. Go ahead and pick it up if you thought this topic was interesting, but I certainly liked picking that little bit out of the book and sharing it with you guys, so I really hope you liked it, and I will see you guys tomorrow.